My wife was looking after our neighbor's huge dog while our neighbor was away. But the dog knocked her down and did something to her that she couldn't resist. And she even liked it. It was an ordinary Thursday evening, the kind where the world seems to slow down, giving you a moment to catch your breath amidst the chaos of life. I had just come home from work, the exhaustion seeping into my bones, making each step feel like a burden. But there was something different about the air in our house tonight. Something electric, charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. I found her in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she bent over to retrieve something from the oven. The sight was so mundane yet so strangely erotic, her dress riding up slightly, revealing just a hint of skin. I stood there unnoticed, watching as she straightened up, a small bead of sweat trickling down her neck. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, trying to ignore the tightness in my chest, the odd mix of curiosity and dread that was forming in my gut. She turned, a look of surprise painting her features, then quickly replaced by a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, you're home early," she said, her voice carrying a note of something unspoken, something hidden. "Yeah, left work a bit early. Thought I'd surprise you." I walked over, placing a kiss on her cheek, trying to feel normalcy in our touch, but it felt different, laden with an undercurrent I couldn't understand. We sat down for dinner, the clink of cutlery against plates the only sound for a while. I kept stealing glances at her, trying to read the shift in her demeanor. Had I done something wrong? Was it something at work? But no, there was something else, something she was keeping from me. Then she spoke, breaking the silence like a dam bursting. "There's something I need to tell you." My heart thudded in my chest, a primal fear rising. What could she possibly say? I braced myself, fore covering in midair. "The dog? When I was looking after him, something happened." Her words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I felt my stomach drop, a cold sweat beginning to form on my brow. What could a dog possibly do that would warrant such a confession? She continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "He was so large, and he pinned me down, and I couldn't move, I couldn't resist." My mind raced, trying to process her words. What was she talking about? Was she implying what I thought she was? The images that flashed through my mind were both grotesque and disturbingly erotic, a mix I couldn't reconcile. I tried to push him away, but there was something about it. Something primal, wild. Her voice trailed off, her eyes avoiding mine, filled with a mixture of shame and something else. Something I couldn't define. I didn't know what to say, how to react. The betrayal, if that's what it was, didn't come in the form of another man, but something far more animalistic, far more unsettling. Did you like it?" The question escaped my lips before I could stop it, my voice sounding foreign, detached. Her hesitation was all the answer I needed. I felt a surge of emotions, anger, confusion, a perverse curiosity. How could she? And yet, part of me wanted to understand, to delve into the dark corners of her mind where this unthinkable act had taken residence. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft panting of the dog which now lay at her feet, its tail thumping against the floor, oblivious to the storm it had unleashed in our lives. I stared at her, at this woman I thought I knew, and realized there were layers to her, depths I had never explored or perhaps dared to acknowledge. And in that moment, the line between right and wrong blurred, leaving me with more questions than answers. What did this mean for us? Could I ever look at her the same way again? And more disturbingly, Why did part of me find this revelation strangely compelling? The evening stretched into night, the tension growing, each tick of the clock echoing the pulse of my heart, the rhythm of an unraveling life. As the darkness outside deepened, I felt an abyss opening within me. Each second dragged on with the weight of a lifetime. The usual comforts of our home now felt like a stage set for a tragedy. So, I finally broke the silence, my voice a mere whisper, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken accusations. How long has this been going on? Her eyes, those windows to her soul that once reflected only love and laughter, now seemed clouded with guilt and something else. Defiance? She took a deep breath, her chest rising in a way that, under different circumstances, would have stirred me. But now, it only fueled my sense of betrayal. Since last month, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, yet each word sliced through the air like a knife. It started when I was walking Max alone. There was this connection. A connection with a dog. The absurdity would have been laughable if it wasn't so devastating. Here I was, imagining her with another man, another woman even. But a dog? My mind reeled, trying to grasp the implications. How? I managed to choke out, not wanting the details yet morbidly needing them, like picking at a scab. It was after the accident when I had to take him to the vet. He was so hurt, so vulnerable. And in those moments of care, something shifted. I started seeing him differently. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in the revelation that this was not just about sex. It was an emotional affair, or as close as one could get under these bizarre circumstances. I looked at Max, now dozing off at her feet, blissfully unaware of the turmoil he had part in creating. His innocence made the whole scenario even more surreal. Did you ever think about us? About what this would do to us? My voice cracked, betraying the storm within. I did, she said. And there was that look again, a mix of sorrow and something darker. But sometimes we can't control what we feel, or whom we feel for. The room felt like it was closing in, the walls whispering secrets I was not meant to hear. Betrayal was always painted as an affair, a secret lover. But this was a twisted narrative I could never have anticipated. And Max? I couldn't even say his name without a twinge of bitterness. What about him now? Her gaze dropped to the dog and her face softened, a stark contrast to the tension between us. I'm not sure. It's complicated. Complicated. That word didn't even begin to cover it. My mind raced with scenarios, none of them comforting. The life we had built together seemed to crumble before my eyes. Not from the usual cracks of infidelity, but from something so unexpected, so utterly bewildering. The silence returned, but this time, it was different. It was not just the absence of sound, but the presence of an unspoken end. The quiet before the storm of revelations. I stood up, feeling the need to move, to break free from this suffocating revelation. My steps felt heavy, each one a decision made, a boundary crossed. The room seemed to shrink as I paced, my thoughts a whirlwind of disbelief and pain. Will you stop this? I asked, hoping against hope for an answer that might salvage some part of our reality. She didn't answer immediately, and in that pause, my heart sank further. When she finally spoke, her voice was firm. I need time to understand, to decide. Time. That's what she needed while my world was crumbling. The room spun slightly as I tried to process her words, the implications of her needing time, the very essence of what that meant for us. The clock's ticking seemed to mock me, marking each passing second of this surreal nightmare. How could one reconcile with such a betrayal? Was there even a path back from here? In that moment, I felt an overwhelming need for air, for space, to think, to breathe without the weight of her confession pressing down on me. I walked to the door, my hand on the knob, hesitating. Did I want to leave? Was this the end, or just a bizarre intermission in our life together? The door opened with a creak, and as I stepped out into the cool night, I left behind not just the warmth of our home, but the comfort of what I thought was our shared reality. The night was silent, except for the distant howl of a dog, a poignant reminder of the night's revelations, echoing through the darkness, a call to an uncertain future. The cool air hit my face, a sharp contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside. As I walked down the street, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each more chaotic than the last. Was it just time she needed, or was it time away from me? The dog's distant howl seemed to echo my inner turmoil, a lonely cry in the night that felt all too familiar. My feet carried me to the park, the place where we had shared so many laughs, so many dreams. But now, every shadow seemed to hold a secret. Every bench a silent witness to a love now questioned. I sat down on our favorite bench, the one we always said was ours. It felt different now, colder, as if the very wood resented my presence. I couldn't shake the image of her face when she told me, the guilt and the sorrow in her eyes. What did that look mean? Was it regret for what she had done, or for what she was about to do? The betrayal was like a knife, slicing through the trust I had placed in her, in us. As I stared at the moon, its serene glow offered no comfort, only a stark reminder of the light that had left my life. The bench creaked under me, and for a moment I imagined it was her voice, telling me something I wasn't ready to hear. "Why?" I whispered into the night. "Why, if you loved me, did you do this?" The silence was my only answer, and the howl of the dog once more, as if it too was searching for an answer, for a resolution to its own pain. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about time, it was about truth. Had she ever been truthful with me, or was our relationship built on a foundation of lies? The thought was unbearable, yet it was all I could think about. Each moment we had shared, every whispered promise, every laugh, now felt like a lie. The betrayal wasn't just her act of infidelity. It was the years of deceit that had led up to this moment. My heart raced with a mix of anger and sorrow. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but the fear of what I might hear held me back. What if she confirmed my worst fears? What if she said she never loved me? Could I handle that truth? The park was empty, save for the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant bark of a dog, perhaps the same one whose howl had marked the night's beginning. It was almost poetic. The way the dog's cry seemed to echo my own internal howling, a sound of pain, confusion, and an uncertain future. I stood up, feeling the cold seep into my bones, matching the chill in my heart. I knew I had to go back, not for answers, but because part of me still hoped for a miracle, for her to explain it was all a terrible mistake. But deep down, I knew that hope was as fleeting as the autumn leaves that fell around me. The path back home was long, each step heavy with the weight of betrayal. As I neared our house, the lights were still on, casting long shadows on the lawn, shadows that seemed to stretch out, reaching for me, pulling me back into the nightmare. I paused at the doorstep, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Could I face her? Could I listen to whatever explanation she might offer? The door loomed large, an entrance not just to our home, but to a confrontation I wasn't sure I was prepared for. With a deep breath, I turned the knob, stepping back into a life I no longer recognized, ready to face the truth, whatever it might be. As I stepped inside, the warmth of the house felt like an alien embrace. The familiar scent of lavender and vanilla candles filled the air, now tainted with the sour taste of deceit. There she was, her silhouette framed by the soft light of the living room. Her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and something else. Was it guilt or fear? Daniel? Her voice broke the heavy silence, trembling as if she could feel the storm brewing within me. Let me explain. But could any explanation mend the shattered trust between us? My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum of war. I walked past her, the plush carpet underfoot feeling like quicksand threatening to pull me into despair. I stopped in the middle of the room, turning slowly to face her. Explain? I questioned, my voice a cold whisper. Can you explain the lipstick on his collar? The text messages? The way you looked at him at the party? She opened her mouth, but no words came out, her eyes darting away from mine, unable to hold my gaze. My mind raced with images, the memories of our life together now tainted. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered, I love you. Did any of it mean anything to her? What we had, Emily. Was it all just a lie? I asked, not expecting an answer, yet yearning for one that would undo the past few hours. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in, as if to force a confrontation, an exorcism of our demons. She took a step forward, her hand reaching out, but I stepped back, the distance between us now not just physical, but vast, insurmountable. I didn't mean for it to happen, Daniel, she finally said, her voice barely a whisper, carrying the weight of 1,000 regrets. It was a moment of weakness. A moment of weakness. The words stung like a betrayal all over again. How long does it take for a moment to turn into weeks, into months? How much time did we lose to her weakness? I moved towards the window, looking out into the night, the darkness reflecting the turmoil inside me. And now? I asked, my back still turned to her, not wanting to see the expression that would surely accompany her next words. Her reply was soft, almost inaudible over the sound of my own heartbeat. In the end, the truth always surfaces, leaving us to face the consequences of our choices. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and leave a comment.